is Brian Beery. I'm a journalist for Europolitics magazine. Just when you were talking about the Muslims, you sort of seemed to imply that it was a monolith with everybody holding these radical views. Do you not think that there's a large majority of Muslims that are much more moderate, and that the challenge is to work with them, to persuade, to force them, the moderates, to basically achieve victory over the radicals?
Exactly. This is exactly what we need. We need to challenge the moderate Muslims all throughout the world. You know, there are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Not all of them are radicals. But in the intelligence community, we estimate there are between 15 to 25% who have been radicalized. That translates into 180 to 300 million people. That's almost as big as the population of the United States. So we do have Muslims living in the United States. Where are their voices? This is the only country in the world where Muslims can demonstrate, where Muslims can march in the streets, where Muslims can speak without being intimidated by the radicals. I can understand why they cannot do it in Libya, in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon. But there is no excuse why the Muslims in the United States cannot take to the streets and rally and send a message to the radicals in the Middle East that we are Americans first. You kill one of us, you kill all of us. We condemn Hamas, we condemn Al-Qaeda, we condemn Jama'ah al-Islamiyya, we condemn Hezbollah. We haven't heard a blurb. Talk is cheap. Having had talking on television screen is empty verbiage, hot air just coming out. Actions speak louder than words. This is the time we need to challenge our Islamic community to take to the streets. Of all the mullahs in the United States, of all the members of mosques in the United States, since September 11th, have you seen a 1 million man march on the Capitol? Have you seen people come to the streets with the same passion as the radicals have and have taken to the streets in any other street in any other country? Let's talk about the passions of the Hezbollah supporters in Dearbornistan, Michigan, right here in our country. They were free to demonstrate in support of Hezbollah against the United States of America, yet we haven't seen this passion and these numbers of people coming out to the streets to defend America. Just last month, 2 reporters in the United States, Fox News reporters, Santani and Wig, were forced at gunpoint in Gaza to convert to Islam, and that was the only way they were able to survive. Now, a lot of Muslims tell us this is not what Islam stands for. If this is not what Islam stands for, and the whole world went up against the Pope, have we seen condemnation and demonstrations in the streets of any street USA condemning this barbaric behavior, 7th century behavior? Actions, my friends, speak louder than words. Our civilization is at stake, and this is the time we need to see people act, not talk.
You had mentioned something like 15% or so of the 1.2 billion Muslims in the world are potentially been radicalized. In this country, I would suspect that that percentage is far lower, and that the potential there is still probably for many thousands to be radicalized. The concern that I have with taking on the campaign that you're talking about, even though I think there's a lot of merit to it, is possible overreaction in this country to a minority population. Just a half century ago, during World War II, we locked up hundreds of thousands of Japanese Americans because we feared they were in cahoots with the enemy. How do you prevent something like this from happening in this country to the overwhelming majority of law-abiding American citizens?
Absolutely, and we are never going to allow to happen what happened back in World War II. But we can be wise in the way we conduct our intelligence. For example, our government wanted to monitor certain mosques last year for radioactive material. Radioactive material. Now you tell me, how many temples and churches have you heard of that we are interested in monitoring them for radioactive material? And why should CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, oppose us to monitoring something where we know there are radioactive material to protect ourselves and our country? There are certain laws that we can put pressure on our elected officials to do where we're not endangering the majority of the Muslims. Obviously, we are not closing the mosques. Obviously, we are not locking them up. Obviously, we're letting the terrorists play in our ground. Look at September 11th, the biggest joke on America. The biggest terrorist act to ever happen on American soil happened by Muslims living in America, came to America either legally or illegally, holding American IDs, using American money, going to American flight schools, training in American flight schools to fly American airliners into American buildings to kill Americans. The whole job was done from within, not outside. So you do not need to just lock the 3 to 6 million Muslims that live in this country, but you can certainly, if you encourage our government to eavesdrop, there is a lot of terrorist attacks that have been foiled since September 11th because of the eavesdropping program. Just because you don't hear about it or it doesn't materialize into a big terrorist act doesn't mean that these programs are not fighting a war for our survival. And this is the time the Islamic community needs to be challenged to turn the radicals within it into us and start working with our government. When you see one individual committing a terrorist act, like the 19 hijackers, like any terrorist, a terrorist doesn't work independently. A terrorist is part of a community. He is protected by a community, financed by a community, supported by a community, defended by a community, hidden in a community, nurtured in a mosque in the community. There is no vacuum in Middle Eastern communities throughout the United States. And our American Islamic community needs to be challenged to turn the terrorists within it, and needs to be more active and voice their opinion more, like Kamal Nawash, like the few people that I know who are speaking out. Those voices need to come forward, and they are already forward. We just need the rest of the Islamic community to stand behind them against those who are wishing to do it. This is a call to all Muslims living in the United States. If those of you moderates exist, and I'm talking directly to the camera, we want to see you in the millions on the streets of America demonstrating, sending a very clear message to the radical barbarians that live in the third world countries in the Middle East to condemn the barbaric acts that have been done in the name of Islam, your religion that supposedly has been hijacked. Because in our beliefs, if something of ours has been stolen or hijacked, we would scream to high heaven that it has been stolen. And we need to hear your voices if you're really upset that your religion has been stolen. Thank you. Do we care about what Europe thinks? Europe right now is Eurabia. It is no longer Europe. Europe that we now used to be Europe has died, or it's on its dying bed. You walk down the streets of the Champs-Élysées in Paris, and what do you see? Women in hijab and in burqa. You see more men dressed in turbans than dressed in a Christian Dior attire and couture. You walk in London, unbelievable. In Denmark, in the year 2000, before 2001, the mullahs in Denmark were declaring from their mosques that by the year 2050, they will declare Denmark an Islamic state. That was 2000, before the big cartoon brouhaha. We were not paying attention, and we better start paying attention. And people need to pay attention to people who are like me, who came to this country, who escaped Islamic persecution, who are speaking up and saying, wake up America, wake up the West. We're going to be the next Eurabia unless we act now and defend our civilization. We're fighting Islamic totalitarianism. Iran is the biggest danger we are facing right now. Ahmadinejad is credible. Listen to every word he is saying. He is going to follow through on every word he is uttering. The minute Iran finishes their nuclear reactor or nuclear bomb, they will use it against Israel and wipe Israel off the map. And that doesn't only start with Israel. Their eyes are going to be next on the United States. The same thing happened to Hitler. When Hitler even wrote a book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle. That's what, Mein Kampf means. And he said exactly how much he hated the Jews and what he wants to do with the Jews. People said, oh, this guy is a lunatic. This guy is a madman. Well, guess what? Listen to what the madman is saying, because he is going to follow through on his threat.